Good morning. I'm here in Salinas, and I am in the office of Pacific Ag Rentals, sitting with Bart Walker. And I actually called you Bartley Walker, but now I feel like you're Bart. You're not Bartley to me anymore.
Yeah, Bartley is what my mom says when I was bad. She would usually say that, but that's on all my business cards. That's typically what I go by. So
I'm excited. Welcome to This is Ag. The reason I reached out to you was because I read your LinkedIn post. It was about a handshake and handshake in agriculture and why that's important and what we do. So I wanted to reach out to you, have this conversation with you, and I'm super, super excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, Kiti, thank you very much for having us. Humbled and honored that you be here to even reach out for this. You know, we started the company and my dad and I in 2001 with 2 tractors on his kitchen table. And, you know, we're over 3,500 pieces of equipment in 8 states in Mexico. It's bigger than we've ever would have thought it would have become. And we finally got to the point maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we said, you know, how big can we get it? How big can this get? And our goal has always been to help out the farmer. And I want to make sure that we're delivering value, that we're helping them either sustain or lower their costs or improve their efficiency. And if we continue to do that, they're going to continue to answer my phone call. They're going to continue to want to say, hey, what does Bart, what does Par have that they can bring out? And this all started from my dad's handshake. You know, my dad came from the hills of Tennessee. In fact, we still have kinfolk back there making moonshine. I won't give the exact location, but I do get a family discount. I get $5 off in case anybody needs any. But my dad never made it past the 3rd grade. And, you know, coming out of college, I thought I was the smartest guy in the world until I started working with my dad and just didn't realize how smart he was and how much common sense that he had. And that really, common sense is teachable because I learned it from him. And what we're trying to replicate here is his handshake. So he passed away in 2010, and we've continued to push to keep that ball rolling. But we want to do that. And listen, we have to have more contracts. We have to have other stuff, but we're fighting so hard to keep it out and make sure that we're focused on the handshake. Farmers understand that contracts are part of the deal, but if you don't have a handshake, you don't have a contract. And that's what we're trying to go through and do with every single customer, every single potential customer we meet, is try and display my father's handshake to them so they can understand that when we say we're going to be there on Tuesday, we want to be there Monday at midnight, right? We want to be there. We want to undersell and over deliver, right? We always want to make sure that they're not having to think about us, that farmers aren't having to call us to say, where are you at? We want to be there when they're ready to go deploy. And then when something breaks down, because all colors break down, when they do break down, that we've got a staff that's going out there with the right tools, with the right parts to get them back up and running again so they can have uptime.
So we did not do this as you were talking through this. For somebody new listening in, and when we say PAR, and I actually did not even introduce you with your title, so you are the owner and president of PAR, Pacific Ag Rentals. So for somebody who might not know, what exactly do you do? What would that be? What does Pacific Ag Rental do?
I want to say we're a fiduciary, somebody that can go through and help the farmer. We're not owned by a dealer. We do have a few brands that we have dealership status with, but for the most part, we buy our tractors from the same place that the customers buy their tractors from. We go down to the local John Deere dealership, the local Case IH dealership, the local Fendt dealership. We buy equipment, and then we go out and provide that equipment to our customers on a monthly basis. Sometimes, Kiti, if a farmer goes into a new area, they don't have equipment, they don't have mechanics, they call us up and say, hey, Bart, hey, Par, I need a tractor from, this March to April, and I need it for 1 month, and I need a 170 horsepower tractor, and I'm going to need a small disc to go behind it. Great, we'll have it there for you. And they have a problem, they call us up, we have our mechanics go out there. So you're really pushing off your need for your mechanic, pushing off your need for equipment. Equipment has gone up over the last 2 years by 35%. We are going through, it's getting so much more expensive for the farmers to own that equipment. So we come in and allow them to rent it, almost like renting a car. When you go down to the airport and you get a car from Hertz, you have to drive it. You have to put fuel in it. If you crash it, you're going to pay for it. and you use it for as long as you want. If you want to use it for a month, then you bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
You turn it back in, you drop off the keys, and you say, see you later. If it breaks down while you have it, Hertz comes out and brings another one. We do the same thing, just with farm equipment.
So you're taking that headache off from the farmer so they can focus on what they need to do.
And there's really nobody else in the United States doing what we're doing. So we're either really super smart or we're super dumb. But I'm thinking we're somewhere in the middle because this is our 23rd year. So we're still here. Lights are still on. So we're doing
I think that
doing
is
something
super
right.
smart, because I was talking to somebody in Wisconsin the other day. And I mentioned that I'm coming down here to meet with you. And he talked exactly about what you just said. From a farmer standpoint, he is a horseradish grower, and he said he would do the same because that takes the headache, one less thing to worry about, and then you focus on what the core of whatever you're growing or whatever you're doing. So
yeah, the tractors are getting so complicated now. I mean, even your car. I mean, I would say, take the car you're driving, lift up the hood, look at the engine. Is there anything you can touch anymore? There's like a big piece of plastic on there, and it says, Keiti, don't touch anything on here. Call the dealership. And the tractors are getting the same way. So we've got trained mechanics, we've got trained shops, we've got the tools to work on all of the equipment. We want to be the front line. Do we still have warranty on our equipment? Yes, we do. Do we still rely on the dealers? Yes, we do. It's a partnership with them, but we want to make sure that when you call, we are the first line of defense. We want to be out there and try and get you back up and running as quickly as possible, because speed of service is what sets us apart from our competition, that and selection. So
yeah, and the thing that attracted me to reach out to you as I was reading your LinkedIn post, the handshake actually talks, in a way, it's how your customers trust you. So they trust you, and that's why handshake works, right? So what you talk about, the way you do business, the way you're handling your customers and what you're doing, is you build your trust over the 23 years, and that's why you've grown so much. And that's the reason the handshake works, because whatever promises you're making, you're going way beyond delivering that, and that builds the trust, right? Is that how you see it?
No, I would agree with that. And so getting back to the trust side, my dad taught me a long time ago, son, you're going to have a problem at some point with the customer. And when you do, take the money out of it. And then do what you think is right. Do what you think is fair. Do what you think is right. And then bring the money back in. He says, because money will cloud your way of thinking.
Right.
And he said, you may lose money in these instances, but you'll have a friend for life. And I've done that on several occasions. And we have friends and customers for life for it. We always want to take the high road. We always want to do what's fair and what's right. I mean, if I'm standing in front of 12 people, I want those 12 people to say, yep, that was the right decision. That's the fair decision to go. And sometimes that costs us time, money, effort, but it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And my son, who's 13 right now, I want him to have the opportunity to run this business at some point. So we're looking at it for the long run. And I think that's really the only way you can look at it, is look at it for the long run. How can we be there and help the farmer out, do what we say we're going to do? And it was easier here on the West Coast because everybody knew my dad, my uncle, Bill Walker, who both were instrumental in my life and my education growing up and introducing me to agriculture. But when we went to Georgia and Florida, those people, they didn't know my dad. They didn't know the Walkers. They didn't know anybody. So going out there, we had to start all over again. And really, you have to spend a lot of time at coffee shops. Yeah. It's 11 times at a coffee shop before the farmer knows your name.
That's true.
15th time before he'll give you a small order, maybe a disc blade or a bearing. But that's how it starts. They have to see your shadow, just like the crops need to see their shadow. They have to see your shadow. And once they see that, and it's replicated, then they start to trust you, and hopefully you can earn their business. And that's what we've been able to do. We've been able to grow organically since day one. Somebody would tell somebody else about how we do what we do. They would say, wow, that looks great. Let me get a tractor from them. And then we'd order 2 tractors, and then 4 tractors, and then 8 tractors. And we're ordering a lot more than 8 now. And we've really been blessed by having great relationships with farmers, no matter where they're at. Farming in Georgia is different. The first time I've ever had boiled peanuts going to Georgia, but learning more about different crops. Farming is different there than it is over here on the western side in California and Arizona. But the farmer's handshake is the same.
Right.
They still have the same needs. They still trying to grow a crop.
Right.
And we found out that our message, my dad's handshake is easy to replicate over there because the farmer just wants somebody that they can trust, that understands that they're going to be there, that if this tractor breaks down, they're going to bring out another one. It may not be the same color, but they're going to bring out another one and keep me going because the rain is so much more impactful back there than it is here. And they need to have uptime. So we want to make sure that we're delivering that for them. So it's been really good. It's been a great business model for us.
Bart, as you're talking through this, the reason I do this podcast is, yes, the listeners listening take nuggets and learn from it. But for me, what I find fulfilling is when I'm sitting across from somebody like you and listening to you, I just grew a little bit in just the last 5 seconds that you mentioned a few things, because you said quite a few things in there that got me thinking. One was put your numbers, people come before the numbers, and looking at it from United Ag, when we doing business, when you're looking at renewals or new business coming in, we tend to forget that putting people first and understanding their business and seeing what that impact it has on their income statements is more important for the long term than the short term thinking of what that renewal or that number looks like today. And you mentioned that's what you learned from your dad and that's what you're carrying through. That's such an amazing lesson to always keep, all right? And the whole thing about relationships, the reason we spend that many hours in a coffee shop is if I don't get to know you at a very deep level as a customer, I'm not going to be able to serve you because your needs are going to be very different than somebody else's needs. And I need to understand your needs, understand you at a deeper level, because that's how the relationship builds. And that's why that handshake, going back to that, because you and I know each other at a very deep level, and that becomes a handshake than a business proposition at that time. And I do feel that's the reason businesses grow. That's the reason we've grown. And that's the reason you look like you've grown. Lots of things.
Yeah, it's always been, customer, company, self, and you have to keep it in that order. And sometimes I ask my wife, sometimes I mess that up because I didn't put family in there, but it's God, family, work too. So those are the two different silos I have to operate in. And sometimes I mess up the family one a little bit, but man, that's what I'm trying to get dialed in. But it's, as far as on the business side, it's customer first, then company, then self. And in business, I think we've kept a small business mentality of just focusing on the customer and not focusing on the money. I almost even look at college football. I look at college football, man, those guys are playing with heart. They're just not really playing for the money. They're just playing for the heart of the sport. And you see more of that. And typically in the NFL and the higher leagues, you see them playing, it's kind of more for self, more for money. And you kind of lose that. And I see that in businesses too, that some of these businesses that we're around, they really value wealth, to me, too much. It's not about money. It's always, to me, about impacting with other people. Listen, I don't know what the mortality rate is where you live, but where we live here in Monterey County, mortality rate is 100%. So we're all going to be dying at some point. And when I'm done and gone, I won't be able to communicate to you with my spoken voice anymore, right? Yep. This is it. Yep. This is the time to talk to people. This is the time to pour into people, to impact people with your spoken words, to encourage people, to get shoulder to shoulder with them. And let's go fight. Let's go make a difference. And I want to communicate with you and lift you up, and let's go make this work. So my goal is to pour into our employees first. We have over 300 employees here. Pour into them, encourage them, motivate them, and then go to our customers and pour into them and ask them, what can we do differently? How can we better serve you? I almost relate us as the porter. When you pull into a hotel and you get out of your car, we're the people that come out, the men and the women that come out to grab your suitcases. And don't apologize because your wife, your husband has 14 suitcases. We'll bring another cart over. Let's go get it. And I think as long as you have that humble servant mentality, which I believe is part of our handshake and what we're pushing down to each of our employees, as long as you have that humble servant attitude, your customers understand what motivates you. And it's not money. That's true. It can't be money. It can't. And I've seen so many business owners that look at it that way. And it's like, what's money going to do with you? What if you and I had hit that lottery and we got $20 million a piece right now? What are we going to do with that? I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I don't want to buy a boat. I get seasick. I probably donate half of it and leave the rest for my kid. Money doesn't motivate me. And I think some of these other business leaders, they get confused by that. So, and that's not part of our handshake.
That is interesting. If a lot of people ask, well, what would you do if you win this lotto? Right? My answer to that is, I want to continue doing what I do at United Ag because it is, and even with ourselves, so you said customer comes first and then your company and then us, right? Even looking at us, when you focus more on the number and not what you're passionate about and what you want to do, it's not going to go anywhere, right? Because like I was telling you the other day when we were chatting, when it's all said and done, what have we done? That's going to be more important, right? Than what we've said or what we've achieved or what money we've made. What have you done? What impact have you had?
Right.
And that's where the passion comes in.
Yeah.
But one of the things, as you were talking through this, I was thinking about the infinite versus the finite games that we play in business. So when you defined it, the finite game would be focusing on numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You focus on numbers. It's like a game of, let's say, where you have winners and losers. So one lose, one gains, right? But what you are more talking about is creating a business that is long-term, sustaining. And it is like a game of catch that we play with each other and we continue on and make each other successful because we are playing it just for the fun and the passion of playing that game. You're not paying to be a winner, or you're not going to be the winner or loser mentality. It is more, let's play the game of where you want to take Pacific Ag Rentals or PAR, where I take United Ag for the passion of what we do day in, day out, right? The money will come, the business will grow, all that will happen. But let's just enjoy and be passionate about what you do every day. That's what I thought about when you said that.
Right. And I keep going back to all ships rise in a rising tide. I want my ship to rise. I want somebody else's ship to rise. Their ship could be 10 times my size or half my size.
Yeah.
But if you think about, hey, the whole pie is not for me. The whole pie is for us. Let's enjoy. All ships rise in a rising tide. So how can we keep, making decisions and partnering to do that? The Japanese have a term called kritsu.
Mm-hmm.
And kritsu is something that Toyota used a long time ago. And kritsu is working with their vendors, but having the vendors work with their vendors as well. So their transmission company would talk to their brake lining company, and they would have their brake lining company talk to their hubcap people, and everybody is interwoven into there. So they're not just doing business with Toyota, but they're doing business with other partners that are doing business with Toyota. And I really like that philosophy of how can we go through and do business with John Deere, do business with Finn, do business with Kubota and Case IH and other companies, and even technology companies. We're working with a company, Burrow, out of the Central Valley, where we're using autonomous carts to help growers go out and pick grapes. And they put them on this little cart. It's like a dog that follows you around, and then you tell it to go back and it takes the grapes back. One of the workers came up to me and told me, he said, Bart, I can actually go play soccer now with my son on Sunday because this cart is helping save my back. And I'm like, that's super cool. I mean, we wanted to do something to help the farmer, but it's helping the workers as well.
Right.
So we're trying to look at how can we create relationships where more open kimono, right? We're sharing with other people. All ships rise. I don't care what ship you have. It could be with John Deere, Fint, or whatever. Let's focus on the farmer.
Right.
Let's focus on what we can do to help them grow a better crop, a more affordable crop, more nutritious crop. What can we do to make that happen? And I think if we all thought like that, man, it'd be a lot nicer place instead of thinking of market share and how much money are we getting from this guy and what can I stick them on in the lease and what's the interest rate going to be? No, let's just say, hey, this is what we have to get. If this works out, great. If it doesn't, if you don't want to rent it, we can lease it to you. We can sell it to you. Right. We're super flexible. Let's find out something that works for you.
Right. How can we make your life easier? That's what you're all about, right?
Right.
That is pretty cool. One of the things I was thinking through a conversation that we had recently, and you're talking about the cold potato soup. Just so for the listeners, can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, I get back to our cold potato soup story. And when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of, extra resources in our household, I guess would be a great way to say it. And my mom would make us potato soup, so she'd get a can of Campbell's soup, cut up a potato, put it in there. There's our dinner for the night. And it was, my mom wasn't the most awesome of cooks. And so the potato soup would be cold. And I remember one time my dad saying, hey, come on, can't we even warm up the soup? Come on, let's warm up the soup, And my mom says, the kids like it that way. And I just put my head down and kept eating. I didn't want to get involved in that deal. But that's where we came from. And I think if you can remember where you come from, that we were able to survive on cold potato soup. And I think a lot of businesses, a lot of people that are starting businesses now, a lot of the younger managers are really focused on surviving off of the dollar, and they don't want to go through and take risks because they've never had to eat cold potato soup. They've always had, steaks or nice dinners and nice meals. There's nothing wrong with that, but they don't want to lose that. They don't know, and they can survive with cold potato soup. They've just never been there. So we're really kind of open to risk. And, I've had some manufacturers ask me, Bart, tell me the KPIs you had when you're coming out here to Florida. What made you come out here to Florida? What was the data? I'm like, man, I didn't have any data. It was a hunch. We're really Lewis and Clark. There's nobody else that we can go through and buy, or M&A. There's nobody doing what we're doing. So we have to stay in the jungle, keep cutting down bushes, climb a tree to make sure we're going in the right direction, and keep cutting. So we took 20 tractors. We went over to Florida and started. And if I hadn't have had my cold potato soup, I wouldn't have understood that I can survive on this if this doesn't work. Bring our tractors back. I understand the risk. I can survive with 2 tractors on my dad's kitchen table again. We can make that happen if it goes to that. So it makes it a lot easier to make riskier decisions. Now, I still calculate those risks, but it makes it a lot easier to let go of the rope, when you need to, because, you can survive on cold potato soup. So that's my story.
That's an awesome story. Actually, the reason I'm here today, I want partly to meet with you, but also have my Women Ag Academy tomorrow. And we are reading the book called The Alchemist. And interestingly enough, last night I was reading about just this, right? It's like taking the risk, because then if you lose everything, you can create it all over again, right? So it is up to us to create and pivot and be creating. If everything goes away, then you can just pivot and start all over again, because we should be all confident that we can do that. And that's exactly what you're talking about here. That gives you the confidence to take the risk, right? Because if you lose everything, you still have the confidence that you can still build it back again. What an amazing story that is. And it relates back to just what I read. Pretty cool.
You can't have your grip so tight on profits, so much on conquering, that you lose sight of why are we here, right? Those people that are gripped so tight on that won't take a risk because, gosh, they don't want to lose that precious dollar.
Correct.
And man, I cold potato soup I haven't priced out a can lately, but I can probably get one for $3.
Yeah.
I can go to Top Ramen. I was in college. We had Keystone beers, the taste of a bottle in a can. I mean, I can get back to bologna sandwiches, which I've had before. For those of you in Georgia, I've had fried bologna sandwiches and okra and lots of stuff in our upbringing, and kind of brings me back to a phone call that I got the other day. It was on New Year's Day. Young gentleman, probably 22 years old, called me up. Random caller from Georgia. I don't know who this person is, and I still don't know who he is today. And he called up and had my business card, because he called me Bart Walker. So I had my business card, and we had a discussion there. He wanted me to help him out. He was playing 21 with a friend. It was 7 o'clock our time, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it was 10 o'clock his time. And playing blackjack with a friend and needed help with blackjack. So here I am talking to this guy for probably 30 minutes and just helping him out with blackjack, which he won his hand after taking my advice. Luck. I mean, I'm not a big 21 player, but I was able to help him through that. We just talked about family and friends and pickup trucks. And he sent me a picture of his truck and went on about our day. But I think he called because he wanted to see what California's like. He's heard that we all eat tofu and all live on a beach and has this image of what Californians are. And hopefully he has a different idea of what Californians are now, that we're not Californians. we're Americans. We're all in one country and we're all fighting for the same thing. And yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on in the world right now. But look back in the 1860s when we had a civil war, there's always been crazy stuff going on in the world, right? Make your vote, stand your ground, know your line in the sand and move forward. And I think that phone call that I still don't know the guy's name, but I'll probably have to call him back at some point.
Hopefully when he listens to it, he'll reach out to you.
He'll know exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah, he'll know.
Yeah.
But
that's a great story.
Just
right?
taking the time. And that's something that I believe we do differently than our competition. We answer our phone on the weekends. We answer our phone on New Year's Day. And we have empathy to talk with other people and understand where they're at in their walk. And if we can help them out, remember we talked about we're only here for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. How can we impart in somebody else? Hopefully I shared with him. Mm-hmm. Hopefully he takes something away from that and thinks, hey, you know what? California might not be all that bad. Right. Or hey, this company, Pacific Ag Rentals, I talked to the president for 30 minutes and he doesn't even know who I am.
Right.
And hopefully that meant something to him and makes an impact. And hopefully at some point he'll be a customer.
Yeah, kudos to him for reaching out to you, because a lot of people go through their life with a perception that California is this way, or even agriculture, right? When you're in that industry, everybody has their perceptions about everything that they don't know, and they form their own ideas in their head. And kudos to him for reaching out, and kudos to you for spending that half an hour on showing him that at the core of it, you are an American, and like anybody else, it doesn't matter Californian or Floridian or somebody else. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Right. That's pretty cool. So Bart, I'm here in your office, and when I walked into the office, I see a calendar here, and it's a pretty interesting calendar because everything else around here looks very professional, and this is kind of a little bit different. So can you tell me a little story behind it? It is actually, just to describe it, or maybe you should tell the story, because if I describe it, it takes away from the punchline.
It's a picture with my dad and I on a tractor. My dad's down in the front by the front wheel, and I'm sitting in the seat. So we got a call. This was when my dad was still alive. We got a call from a local fundraising agency, and they said, hey, you know what? We'd really like to pay a tribute to your dad for being in agriculture and everything he's done for agriculture. He's been in agriculture since the late 60s, and we would like to do a tribute. So we're doing a calendar, fundraising calendar, and it's going to be for the children. It's going to be for the third graders. It's going to be for the, we're helping the children in third grade see agriculture, and that's great. But so this is going to be a fundraiser to help them. I'm like, okay, this should be an easy thing. I think this would be a great honor for Dad. Went down and talked to him, said, Dad, we got a great opportunity. They really want to honor you for being in agriculture. They just want us to be on a calendar. It's great. So I, about a month later, somebody called me up and they said, hey, I hear you're going to be in this calendar. Yeah. It's going to be a fundraiser, Monterey County Ag Education. We're raising money for the children, and it's going to be great. And they said, well, you know that the calendar is kind of like a nude calendar. And I'm like, no. This is a calendar. This is a tribute to my dad for agriculture. It's not going to be that. So I called up the lady who called me and I said, hey, I heard something crazy. They said that there was going to be a nude calendar. It's not going to be a nude calendar, right? That's crazy. And she said, no, yeah, that's what it's going to be. And I'm like, uh-oh. I said, I don't know if my dad's going to agree to this. So I thought in my head, man, I got to come up with something I can tell my dad so we can back out of this, because I don't work out. Nobody wants to see that. I mean, listen, we're not calendar people, right? And so I go down and tell my dad, and I said, Dad, you won't believe this. These guys, they want it to be a nude calendar, Dad. How crazy is that? So I thought that would get him to say no. And he thought about it for a second. He said, son, it's for the children. We got to help the children out. Let's go ahead and do that. and I'm like, okay. So we get here, and the photographer's right. I said, hey, let's do this in the shop. And he's like, no. We don't need to do it in the shop. We need to have agriculture around the back. We need to have, lettuce or something. I'm like, well, there's lettuce right across the street, but we'd have to be out in the open. Yeah, that's a good place. So we go over across the street, and we have the tractor, and we're sitting there, and I don't have my clothes on. My dad doesn't have we have our shoes on, and that's it. He's standing at the front of the tire, and we're hit. You can't see everything, right? And then the photographer starts to tell us a story, and I'm like, listen, send me a text message. Take the photo. People were driving by. We actually had our Vice President Lou Ray. His wife was driving by in a truck pulling some horses. She sees us. She starts honking the horn. Other people are going by honking the horn. They take the picture, and I thought it's very, very embarrassing. And it was a cold day too, but very embarrassing. And we got through it, and
It's actually a great picture. I love the picture.
So it's titled For Rent with my dad and I, and it was a success. They had so many people sign up for the calendar. There was a 2-year calendar. So all agriculture people, all naked with things covering their areas. And, I'm so glad I did it because it really got us to get outside of the box and to do something different, to do something that is non-consensus. And that brings us back to exactly what we want to try and do. We want to be the non-consensus disruptor in the industry. We want to be a different vehicle to provide equipment to the farmer, something that the manufacturers haven't looked at before. I like non-consensus disruptor so much. I got the website. I also got the website United Ag Rentals. I got that on year 2 when we started. And United Rentals is a billion. They're a $10 billion company, and always have had the dream of, hey, what if we did get that big? And if we don't, that's okay. Cold potato soup. I'm okay with, where we're at. But I got the website United Ag Rentals. They'll probably sue me for it at some point. But
United Ag Rentals?
Yeah. And so I wanted us to stay focused, even at a small, young age. We're dreamers, and let us continue to dream and think big thoughts. You think big thoughts and things will happen. And sometimes we find ourselves dreaming and it's not big enough. We need to think
100%.
bigger thoughts. So that's what we try and do here.
I think big, and I like that. And you're going to be United Ag Rentals. That sounds great too for United Ag, because I think you mentioned this earlier on. It is all of us grow together, right? We all can, on the rising tide, all grow. So you grow and we'll grow. And we at United Ag also dreaming very, very big. So I wish you all the luck, because everything that you talked about today, I don't see anything but success coming your way. I don't think you'll ever be having that cold potato soup, because think about it. You talked about the way grit, right? Your company is built on that. It's built on human beings. It's built on employees understanding what a customer really needs and understanding at a deeper level, relationships, trust. It's like a long-term thinking. All of that actually is so important in a business to grow. And I don't see anything but success, Bart. I think you will be, the next time I'm here, it's going to be that $1 billion company and United United Ag Rentals. Yeah,
I think that as long as we understand what success means, and success means, you talk about, we could have a whole program on just what success means. And success to me means that I'm going to have a packed church at my funeral. That to me is success, because that means that I've poured into people with my time, my effort, my money, my handshake, whatever it is. That to me is success, because, and if I do that broke with cold potato soup, that's awesome. I did something good here, because that to me is what success is.
Defines. Yeah, that is true success. That is true success. This has been such a pleasure, and I am so inspired by this conversation right now. Lots of takeaways for me. I've been taking notes as you were talking. A lot of things that to learn from here. This is awesome. I'm so glad I reached out to you, and looking forward to maybe part 2 of this, because this is amazing. Thank you.
It'd be great. Thanks again, KT and United Ag, for having me. You put a mic in front of my face and I'll talk for forever. I'd like to say it's all because of me or all because of my dad, but we pray a lot around here too. And so we've got some divine help as well. And I think that really goes well with the farmers as well, because they pray a lot for their crops, and we want to make sure we're in lockstep with them. So thanks again, Pacific Ag Rentals. Thanks you for coming here today. And I thank you for coming here today, and great questions. So thank you.
Thank you.